Hi everyone, this is just a quick video to help you answer question 4 in this mock paper 1 on the EDUQAS GCSE English language exam. Okay, so you can see the first thing that it says in question 4 is read lines 58 to 93. Remember, really important that we stay within those lines, so make sure you highlight that so you don't forget. And the question, how does the writer create a sense of danger and drama in these lines? Okay, interesting. Two things we can look at there, danger and drama. So we're looking for things that sound a little bit scary, a little bit sinister, something that's foreboding. This could be tone, it could be the actual words, it could be what happens. And also anything that sounds quite dramatic. So look at how the writer uses the senses. So don't just think about what's described visually. Is there any sense of smell or sound or taste that Mason is describing? So this question reminds us we need to be looking at what happens in these lines. Seems quite obvious. And also it suggests that you might want to talk about the writer's use of language and structure. Now don't worry too much about this. Obviously, if you're confident talking about language, that's absolutely fine. If you're confident talking about structure, so in what order the events happen in, for example, or possibly talking about structural features like foreshadowing or flash forward and flashback, by all means go for it, but it is not essential. And remember, you are not getting marks for knowing a metaphor is a metaphor or a simile is a simile. You're getting marks for understanding what the writer is trying to make us see. Okay, so when we talk about show not tell in creative writing, this is what the writer's trying to do here. He's trying to show you drama and danger instead of tell you about it. So if you can see the ways that he's doing that with his words and what order these events are happening, talk about it, okay? If this freaks you out and you don't really know what we're talking about, don't worry about it. You're not going to lose any marks. It's all about showing you understand. Okay, remember, we need to quote as always. I'm just going to make that red to remind you. And this is a 10-mark question again. 10 marks means we're looking for about 8 different points where we can sense danger and drama supported by 8 different quotes. And I would recommend again that you spend about 15 minutes on this question. First thing we need to do then is we need to read these lines 58 to 93. So let's go back to our text. I'm going to go down. Oops. I'm going to go down and I'm going to find line 93 first, and I'm just going to, there we go, just going to underline it so I know I'm not going to go beyond that one. And we'll go back up to line 58. So this should just start where we left off before. Yep. Waves murmured outside the windows, and the distant wish-wash of racing foam drew Mason from his sleep. The muffled thunder of rollers and the sound of deep water drummed in his ears. He climbed out of bed and dressed quickly as the hiss of receding water sounded up the street. In the corner, under the light reflected from the distant foam, Miriam lay asleep in the armchair, a bar of moonlight across her throat. His bare feet soundless on the pavement, Mason ran towards the waves. On his knees, Mason felt the cold, brilliant water spurt across his chest and shoulders, slacken and then withdraw. His wet clothes clung to him, and like a drowned animal as Mason stared out across the sea. Out of breath, Mason leaned against a fence as cold foam cut across his legs, pulling him into the undertow. Illuminated by the racing clouds, he saw a pale figure in the distance, standing on a stone parapet above the sea, her black coat lifting behind her in the wind, and long white hair in the moonlight. Far below her feet, the luminous waves leapt and vaulted like acrobats. Mason ran along the pavement, losing sight of her as the road curved and the houses intervened. The water slackened and he caught a glimpse of the woman's icy white profile through the spray. Turning, the tide began to ebb and fade, and the sea shrank away between the houses, draining the night of its light and motion. As the bubbles dissolved on the wet pavement, Mason searched the headland, but the luminous figure had gone. His damp clothes dried themselves as he walked back through the empty streets. The last tang of brine was carried away in the midnight air. The next night, waist-high sea pounded across the lawn in a whirlpool. Mason pulled off his flannel jacket and flung it into the water, then waded into the street. Higher than ever before, the waves had finally reached his house. His attention, however, was focused on the headland and reaching the figure standing on its crest. This time, he was determined to reach her before the tide turned. Mason pressed on, sometimes sinking to his shoulders in the water around him. When he reached the slopes of the lower headland, he was exhausted. Fixated, Mason climbed the flank of the headland, 1,000 reflections in the moon and the breaking sea surrounding him. As he reached the woman, her black coat hiding her face, she began to move away along the parapet, seemingly without moving her limbs. "Wait," he shouted. His shout was lost in the air, but as he ran forward, the figure turned and stared back at him. Her white hair swirled around her face like a spume of silver steam and revealed a face with empty eyes and a notched mouth. Her hand, a bundle of white sticks, clawed towards him, and she rose through the whirling darkness like a gigantic bird. Unaware whether the scream came from his own mouth or hers, Mason stumbled backwards, tripping over a wooden railing. In a cackle of chains and pulleys, he fell backwards into a gaping hole in the cliff, the sounds of the sea booming in its hurtling darkness. Okay, so let's remind ourselves of our question here for number 4. How does the writer create a sense of danger and drama in these lines? And we should write about what happens, and if we feel confident doing so, we can write about the writer's use of language and structure. Okay, I'm going to start with firstly, as always, because this is my first point. Of the 8, I am going to try and make in 15 minutes. Now, if I go back to the extract, escalated quite quickly, everything was, there was a bit of tension at the beginning, and all of a sudden we've got a Skeletor type character being described as flying like a pterodactyl at him. Scary stuff. Okay, line 58. I'm going to start here. Waves murmured outside the windows, and the distant wish-wash of racing foam drew Mason from his sleep. There are lots and lots of points I want to make here, but I'm going to start from the beginning, because remember, ideally we want to try and take a point from each paragraph. So it's making a range of different points and taking them from the beginning, from the middle, and the end of those lines. How many paragraphs have we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Perfect. There's 8 different paragraphs, so we could maybe take a quote from each paragraph for this question. There's actually, I could maybe take about 3 just from this first paragraph alone, but I'm just going to go for the first one. So waves murmured outside the windows, and the distant wish-wash of racing foam drew Mason from his sleep. Okay, I like this idea, so I'm going to say firstly, and I'm going to reword the question. The writer creates sense of danger and drama using words such as murmured, racing. Oops, I spelled murmured wrong. I did mean murmured, yes. And racing to describe sound, pace, waves outside his window. I think those words make this sound dramatic. It's almost like the waves are alive, they're murmuring, and also they're racing, okay? Racing's quite dramatic, isn't it? Yeah, something's going very fast. So firstly, the writer creates a sense of danger and drama by using words such as murmured and racing to describe the sound and pace of the waves outside his window. I would then move on to my second point, which I would start with secondly. I would go back here to my text and I would pick out the next quote that I thought was the best one that would show us drama and danger. I quite like this, the hiss of receding water. And I also really like this quote here. Miriam lay asleep in the armchair, a bar of moonlight across her throat. That sounds very sinister to me. The bar of moonlight across her throat. I wonder what you could all say about that. Have a think. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with that one. Remember, this is question 4. Let's set a timer for 15 minutes. It's a 10-mark one, so about 8 different points with 8 different quotes would be amazing. You've got 15 minutes to try and answer it in.